Legend has it that his mother was imprisoned in a tall brass tower, a chamber simply adorned, locked with multiple locks to ensure that she would never get out after her father had heard of an oracle that she would have a child and this child would come and usurp him. Well, Zeus falls in love with this mere mortal and breaks through these walls, and they have a child. And as soon as the father hears of this child's birth, he takes his daughter and he puts her and this child in a wooden chest and he throws them out to sea to die. And as she's there holding on to her son, Perseus, stroking the locks of his hair, she says a prayer over him. That as the wind hisses, as the waves continue to move the chest back and forth, and as water seeps in to where she only believes that drowning is left, she says a prayer. My child, troubles have me, yet you sleep so soundly. Oh, baby, on my breast in this bleak box, moon-lit, bronze-bolted, blue-black dusk gloom you lie. The salty brine drowns your drenched locks. But you give no attention to the surge of the waves or the howling of the wind. You lie, your sweet face peeks through. But if you took our terror for a terror, your little ear would hear my sad lament. Sleep, baby, sleep, ocean, sleep, boundless evil. I command you that change will come, change will come, change will come, change will come. And it's just then that the box breaks and the two are free and back on land again. And she realizes that she cannot raise Perseus on this mere mortal land. So she offers him up to a guide. Hannah was neither locked in a bronze chamber, nor a princess, nor running from an angry father. But we know Hannah best because of 1 Samuel and her prayers for a child and her prayers placed over a child in the midst of some of the most painful moments of her life. Praying for change within her, praying for change among the world around her, and then finally realizing that the change for the world is the change that is within her. We know Hannah from these first 2 chapters of having Samuel and giving him back to God, literally, that he would be raised in the house of the Lord in Shiloh. We don't often get to chapter 2 when Hannah gives this very long prayer before she drops Samuel off with Eli. It's simply 11 verses of prayer for change to come. That the bows of warriors would be broken, but those who stumbled are armed with strength. For those who are full hire will be out of food, but those who are hungry be hungry no more, that the Lord brings life and raises up those close to the grave. These are the last words of Hannah, and we don't hear from her anymore throughout the Hebrew Bible, nor do we even get her name again throughout the New Testament. Hannah shares her prayer of change and her child who will change the world, and then she exits stage left. And there's a lot going on between the 24 verses in between Hannah leaving and when we get Samuel's calling. That Eli's children, sons to be exact, that they were stealing offerings, though they were supposed to be priests. They were having sex with women coming into the tent of meeting, though they were supposed to be priests. There's a whole sermon on that for another time. And while the rumors have been spreading among the town of what Eli's children are doing, most begin to think this is just normal. This is just the way it's supposed to be. This is just life. And that's why the story we have today begins with such an ominous note. But not only was the word of the Lord rare, the leadership in Israel was corrupt. And amid the corruption and amid the word of God being so sporadic, God calls a child. And when Samuel finally realizes that it's not Eli calling him, it's not just some voice in the wind, that it is God calling him, he turns his face, he turns his ear, he turns his eyes, he turns his full self to God to be used and called for whatever may be. He hears not just prophecy, but calling, fate, but also fear. Because in this prophecy, in this fate, is the demise of his guru, his guardian, Eli. I like the way that Donna Schaefer puts it. God is going to do something new so large that it will make us tingle. And God is going to do it through a young boy. That God is going to give us pins and needles and use a child as a delivery system. So that by the time we come to the Gospels, it is so familiar of who God is using. But let's be honest, doing a new thing and having tinglings in our ears sounds a lot like hearing change and change coming. We come to this place almost every week to talk about a God who is evolving, a God who brings change and newness before us. But when we're asked to accept it, to do it, to approach it, whether it's church, whether it's state, whether it's government, whether it's personal lives, whether it's friendships, whether it's jobs, that's the tingle we don't really want. Often, it seems what makes our ears tingle is not hope, but rather fear, and not for what is better, but what is going to make us bitter. We embrace change or some semblance of it, just like we embrace a hornet's nest. And studies have shown that as humans grow older after leaving their home, they begin to resist change. That actually what happens is that each and every one of us in this room are living in a different year. That we hold on to the time that was known best for us. And over and over and over, as we progress through time, we are trying our hardest to relive that moment in time again. So that while we might be in 24, some of us are still in 23, some of us are in 62, some of us are in 85. We remember those moments fondly and say, I want that again, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen again, whether it's through our voting, whether it's through our jobs, whether it's through how we project things upon our children and our world around. Anything we can do to get that again. And at some point, the choice for unity, the choice for solidarity, the choice of justice and mercy and grace will find itself going against our faith-based and ethical desires. And we have to wonder, in the midst of a world spiraling and diverging societies, will we change the ideologies that we created, that we decided was only good then and cannot push us into something that we've never seen before? God says to Samuel, I'm going to do something new. And Samuel answers this call knowing what it may bring to the people of Israel. And lest you forget, Samuel's the only one that answers this call. The rest of Israel does not. The rest of Israel continues to push against Samuel and God every time he brings a prophecy before them. Because oftentimes, a new thing looks like something different than we've seen before. And we don't know how to handle it. So Samuel spends the rest of his life trying to offer this new earth, this new society to people. He spends his life trying to get them to understand their wicked ways and their unjust ideologies, but the people will not budge. And so what they put on his grave is that from Dan to Beersheba, they knew he was a just person, even if they wouldn't follow injustice. From Dan to Beersheba. It's a biblical phrase used 9 times in the Hebrew Bible to refer to the settled areas of the north and the south of Israel. From Dan to Beersheba. Just follow me for a bit. I often don't preach the Sunday before MLK. I don't really have the strength, or it's just that I have too much trauma in my cells that continue to generate that does not give me the desire to continue to say whitewash quotes by MLK and then tell everybody it's going to be okay and then we go home to have lunch. Because we're in where we are today because it's something new in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s that we still have not been able to comprehend right now in 2024. We're still where we are today is because America has a tradition where it likes to kill people and then want to regard their dreams after they're dead, but not want to do it and manifest it while they're alive. I just don't have the patience for it. Because a new thing sounds like change, we put it to death over and over and over again. We put dreams to death. And on the news reels, we say their dream is that she had just finished her EMT practices and was going to be a medic. His dream was to play in the symphony, but he was picking up his brothers and was shot by the neighbor. His dream at 7 years old was to be a firefighter, but that ended. We have this weird tradition that we come to this time every year and give the kids coloring sheets and say, I have a dream. We come to this time and do galas and breakfasts and lunches to say that I have a dream, or that light, the darkness will not cast out darkness, but only light. We come to this time and then we go back home and we ignore all of it because it sounds like change. And right now, between Dan and Beersheba, war is happening. Thousands and thousands of dreams have died. And so if we come to this place, and I use any words from King, it is to realize that their freedom and our freedom are bound together. And we must position ourselves to do the work of justice, even when it goes outside our comfort, even when it goes outside of what we desired in the world, that we have to realize that our freedom, my freedom, your freedom is extended and together by those thousands and thousands miles away. In her book, In Fleshing Freedom, Sean Copeland states that oppression assaults our connectedness to another. Oppression is both the reality of the present and the fact of history. But solidarity mandates to us to shoulder our responsibility to the past in the here and now, and the memory of the crucified Christ and all victims of history. That shouldering this obligation, even if it means enduring loss or disruption of the future, that solidarity affirms life even in the face of sin and death. That this becomes a part of the work of Christian community. That Christian solidarity in the here and now anticipates the eschatological healing and building up of the broken body. This becomes the gathering together, the work ahead, and the fullness of living out God's dream for the world. Samuel says, "Here I am." And a few chapters later, we realize Israel rejects the new thing God is doing. I wonder how long it will take before we, as people of God, will stand up and not reject what God is calling us to live into the change, live into what is new, to understand, as Sam Cooke sang so long ago, that a change is coming. But maybe one day we'll sing it where we can actually believe it. So here we are, my friends. Happy MLK Day.